In the unending expanse of the galaxy, where stars are born and die in celestial dances, there existed a world untouched by the warmth of human interaction. It was on this distant planet, Esithera, that Lria lived. A creature of ethereal beauty and intelligence, she belonged to the Asilians, a species renowned for their emotional depth and technological prowess. Yet despite their advancements, the Asilians were a solitary species, having long decided that emotional entanglements with other beings were too chaotic, too unpredictable. Love was a concept archived in the ancient sections of their libraries, deemed an illogical relic of their ancestral past. Lria, however, was an anomaly among her kind. Where her peers saw efficiency and logic, she saw the shadows of loneliness that lingered in the corners of their perfect society. She spent her days in the vast digital archives, poring over old texts and visual records of civilizations long gone, civilizations that had thrived on emotional connections. It was during one of her deep dives into ancient Earth history that she first saw him, an image flickering on the holographic display. He was distinctly different, with expressive eyes and a smile that seemed to hint at a million secrets. The record labeled him as a human, a species from a small blue planet, which had once teemed with a variety of life forms. The more she learned about humans, the more she found herself drawn to their complexity, their capacity for love and sorrow, joy and despair. Driven by a newfound curiosity, Lria decided to venture beyond the boundaries set by her people. She prepared her spacecraft, an elegant vessel powered by dark energy that responded to her thoughts. As she set the coordinates for Earth, she felt a thrill of anticipation. What if there were still humans out there? Could she meet one? What would she say? Her journey took her through star systems and across nebulas, each light year bringing her closer to the long-lost planet of Earth. But when she finally arrived, she found nothing but ruins. Earth was desolate, a relic of some ancient disaster, its once vibrant blues and greens reduced to grays and browns. Heartbroken but not defeated, Lria extended her search to other planets and moons, any place that might have served as a refuge for humanity. Her quest led her to a small, seemingly insignificant moon orbiting a gas giant. It was here, in a forgotten colony beneath the moon's icy surface, that her sensors detected a life form. With her heart pounding in a rhythm she barely understood, Lria landed her craft on the icy terrain. She stepped out into the cold, her body shielded by an energy field that kept the harsh environment at bay. The moon was silent except for the howl of the wind and the faint signal that guided her to an old airlock buried beneath layers of ice. She activated the mechanism to open the airlock, and as the heavy door slid aside, warm light spilled out, illuminating her face with its golden glow. Inside, waiting as if fate had arranged their meeting centuries ago, stood a man. His features were lined with age and experience, his hair a shock of white against his tanned skin, but his eyes, those expressive human eyes, sparkled with the same curiosity that had driven her across the stars. "Hello," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "I thought I was the last one left." Lria, her voice a melody that seemed to weave the very air between them, replied, "Perhaps you were, but not anymore." As they stood facing each other, a bridge between two species, two worlds, a feeling stirred in Lyria's chest. A feeling that her people had forgotten, but she was just beginning to understand. It was a feeling that promised no logic could ever fully explain, no science could ever fully decode. But in that moment, she knew it was the beginning of something incredible. Loveless and lonely no more, Lria stepped forward into a new chapter of her life, her heart open and ready for the unknown. As Lria stepped into the warm glow of the makeshift shelter, she was immediately enveloped by a rush of sensations that were foreign yet oddly comforting. The man who introduced himself as Jonah had turned what could have been a stark and barren refuge into a home brimming with artifacts and mementos of a lost world. Books lined shelves that were carved into the ice walls, and photographs, faded yet resilient, dotted the space, each a silent testament to the vibrant life Earth had once held. Jonah moved about the small space with a gentle ease, fetching a pair of steaming beverages from a compact brewing machine. "Tea," he explained, handing a cup to Lria. "One of the many small pleasures we cherished back on Earth." Lria accepted the cup, her fingers tingling as they wrapped around the warmth. The steam carried a scent that was at once alien and alluring, filled with hints of herbs and a sweetness that lingered in the air. As they sat across from each other at a small table, Jonah began to recount his story. He was a scientist, part of a team that had fled Earth centuries ago amidst a cataclysm that had torn the fabric of human civilization apart. They had sought refuge on this moon, hoping to preserve what they could of human culture and knowledge until the day they could return home, or find a new one. The disaster was sudden, Jonah said, his voice thick with the weight of memories. We barely escaped. Earth's environment collapsed under the strain of overpopulation and relentless exploitation. We came here to survive, to keep the essence of humanity alive in the hopes that one day someone might find us. Lria listened intently, her mind racing with questions. "And the others?" she asked, her voice a whisper against the quiet hum of the shelter. "Gone," Jonah replied softly. "Time and the harsh conditions took them one by one. I'm the last of us, the keeper of our stories." His eyes glistened with unshed tears, a deep sorrow echoing in the depths of his gaze. Lria reached out, her hand hesitating in the air between them before resting gently on his. It was a simple gesture, yet it bridged the vast expanse of experiences and lifetimes that separated them. Jonah looked at her hand, then up at her face, and for a moment there was a silent understanding that words could not capture. Moved by his story and the profound loneliness that enveloped him, Lria felt a surge of determination. "Your stories won't die here, Jonah. We'll find a way to share them, to ensure that the legacy of humanity continues." Jonah's smile, though tinged with sadness, was genuine. "With you here, perhaps there is hope yet," he said. The hours slipped by as Jonah showed Lria around the shelter, sharing tales of Earth's history, its triumphs and its failures. Lria was captivated by the human capacity for hope and resilience, traits that her own species had deemed inefficient in the relentless pursuit of progress and stability. As the moon outside transitioned from a harsh white glare to a softer twilight, reflecting the distant sun's rays in a spectrum of blues and purples, Lria proposed a plan. "We should create a record, a new archive," she suggested. "Not just of what was, but of what could be. We can start with your memories and build from there." Jonah nodded, his enthusiasm reignited by the prospect of contributing to something that could outlast even his own fragile existence. Together, they began to outline their project, discussing the technologies that Lyria's ship could provide and the wealth of data stored in her ship's archives. As they worked, the foundation of a deep bond formed between them, rooted in shared purpose and a newfound companionship. For Jonah, it was a connection to the future he had resigned himself to never seeing. For Lria, it was an awakening to the emotional richness she had always sensed was missing from her life. Together, they embarked on a mission not just of survival, but of revival, breathing life into the echoes of the past and forging a beacon of hope for anyone who might one day follow in their footsteps. Under the pale light of the distant sun, their project took shape. Lyria's advanced technology melded with Jonah's extensive knowledge of Earth's history and culture, creating a synergy that neither had anticipated. They called it the Archive of Tomorrow, a digital and physical repository that would not only safeguard human heritage, but also serve as a beacon for other civilizations that might stumble upon this moon in the future. The core of the archive was designed to be dynamic, capable of evolving and updating itself. Lria programmed the system with a learning algorithm inspired by the adaptive nature of human thought. "It should not just preserve the past," she explained as her slender fingers danced over the holographic interface, "but also interpret and add new insights as it encounters them." Jonah watched, fascinated by her technological prowess. He contributed narratives, poems, scientific theories, and philosophical essays, all the elements he deemed essential for a comprehensive understanding of what it meant to be human. "We should include art, music, and literature too," he suggested, pulling up data from old, nearly forgotten storage devices. "These are what truly speak to the soul." Together, They spent days digitizing paintings, uploading symphonies, and recording dramatic readings of significant literary works. The archive was becoming a testament to human creativity, a reminder that even in the face of extinction, the human spirit remained indomitable. As the archive grew, so did their relationship. Through their collaboration, Lria and Jonah learned more about each other's worlds. Lria shared tales of Esithera, her planet of towering crystal cities and serene landscapes, where technology and nature existed in harmony, but emotional expression was often subdued. "Your world has a beauty that is structured, predictable," Jonah noted one evening as they reviewed a series of holographic images of Esithera. "It's quite different from Earth, where beauty often lies in chaos. And yet I find Earth's chaos captivating," Lria admitted, her voice soft. "There's a rawness to it, a vulnerability that Esithera lacks." Jonah smiled, understanding her sentiment. "Perhaps in our differences, there's a balance to be found." One night, while taking a break from their intensive labor, Jonah showed Lria how to play an old Earth instrument called a guitar. The music was clumsy at first, her fingers unfamiliar with the strings, but there was laughter, a sound rare and delightful in the cold expanse of their surroundings. Jonah's teaching was patient and kind, and soon Lria could strum a simple melody. "Music is like a language of emotions," Jonah said, listening to her play. "It transcends words." Lria nodded, her eyes reflecting the soft light of the shelter. "And perhaps through this archive, others will speak this language too, long after we are gone." As the archive neared completion, they prepared a broadcasting system designed to send signals into deep space. This signal would carry invitations in multiple languages, coded messages designed to be decipherable by anyone with advanced technology, guiding them to the archive of tomorrow. On the day they activated the broadcast, Lria and Jonah stood side by side, watching as digital pulses radiated outward into the cosmos. "Now we wait," Jonah said, his hand finding hers. Lria squeezed his hand, her thoughts a mix of hope and anxiety. "And hope," she added, her gaze fixed on the stars. "Hope that this will not be the end but a beginning." Their work completed, they settled into a routine, maintaining the archive and sharing stories and knowledge. Each day strengthened their bond, a unique blend of friendship and partnership, framed by the stark beauty of their icy refuge. Together, they had turned a tale of survival into one of legacy, ensuring that the essence of humanity would endure, not as a whisper lost in the winds of time, but as a loud, resonant voice calling out to the universe. As days melded into weeks, Lria and Jonah continued to refine the archive, enriching it with more layers of human and Assylian culture. The process was a deep dive into the essence of both their beings, a blend of memories and dreams cast into digital form. Their isolated existence on the moon grew comfortable, filled with routines and shared discoveries, a unique symbiosis between two vastly different entities bound by a common goal. However, the universe, vast and ever unpredictable, had other plans. One evening, as they were reviewing the latest data integrity checks of the archive, the console beeped unusually, a signal interrupt that was neither part of their regular updates nor a scheduled test. Jonah looked up from his work, his expression turning from curiosity to surprise. "It seems we've caught the attention of someone," he said, motioning for Lria to come over. Lria approached, her heart rate accelerating, not from fear but from the thrilling possibility that they were not alone in the galaxy. She watched as Jonah decoded the incoming transmission, her eyes tracing the flickering symbols on the screen. "It's a response," Jonah announced, his voice barely a whisper, laden with awe. "And it's not just any response. It's structured, complex. It's from another civilization." The implications were profound. Not only had their signal been received, but it had been understood and replied to. This was the moment they had hoped for, a sign that their efforts to reach out into the cosmos had borne fruit. The message was intricate, a combination of mathematical sequences and linguistic patterns that took them days to fully decipher. With each piece of the puzzle they solved, a picture began to form of a civilization not just advanced, but profoundly rich in culture and philosophy. "They call themselves the Zalari," Lria explained, translating the last of the decoded message. They're explorers, much like us, seeking knowledge and understanding of the universe. The Zalari had stumbled upon the broadcast purely by chance while mapping a distant cluster of stars. Intrigued by the poetic nature of the signal, they had decided to investigate further, leading them to Lria and Jonah's lonely moon. "We must prepare for their arrival," Jonah said, his strategic mind already considering the necessities. "They've given us their arrival timeline just a few weeks from now." The weeks leading up to the Zalari's arrival were a flurry of activity. Lria and Jonah expanded the shelter, building a new section that could serve as a meeting area and additional archive space. They curated a selection of items and information to present to the Zalari, showcasing the best of human and Assylian culture. Lria felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. What if they are so different from us that we can't find common ground? She voiced her concern one evening as they sat exhausted yet satisfied after a day's hard work. Jonah, ever the optimist, reassured her. The fact that they responded to our signal means we already share something, a curiosity and a desire to connect. Everything else we'll figure out as we go. Finally, the day arrived. The Zalari ship entered the moon's orbit, a marvel of engineering that glittered like a jewel against the backdrop of space. Lria and Jonah watched from the observation deck, their hands linked as the ship descended. The airlock door opened, and 3 Zalari emerged. They were tall and graceful, with shimmering skin that seemed to absorb and reflect light. Their eyes were wide and luminous, exuding warmth and intelligence. "Welcome," Lria greeted them, her voice steady despite the emotional tumult inside her. "Welcome to our archive of tomorrow." The leader of the Zalari, who introduced himself as Saren, bowed slightly. "We are honored to be here," he said, his voice musical and resonant. "Your signal was a beacon of hope in the silence of space. We are eager to learn from you and share our knowledge." As they toured the archive, exchanging stories and ideas, it became clear that this was just the beginning of a larger dialogue, a mutual exchange that could span generations. The universe had just grown significantly smaller for Lria and Jonah, their mission reaching beyond the confines of survival and legacy, transforming into a conduit for interstellar friendship and cooperation. The days following the Zalari's arrival transformed the quiet moon into a vibrant hub of intercultural exchange. The Archive of Tomorrow, initially a sanctuary for human history and a testament to Assylian technology, now began to expand in scope and diversity, incorporating Zalari knowledge and artifacts. Saren and his companions, Mira and Tolan, were quick to share their own civilization's achievements and the philosophical underpinnings that shaped their society. The Zalari, it turned out, had a profound appreciation for the arts, much like humans, but their expressions were vastly different, often transcending the visual and auditory to include sensory and temporal elements that were entirely new to Lria and Jonah. Mira, an expert in Zalari art forms, introduced Lria to a series of interactive experiences that combined light, sound, and touch in ways that evoked deep emotional responses. "Art for us is not just to be observed, but to be lived and experienced," Mira explained as they walked through a holographic installation that played with the concepts of time and memory. Jonah, meanwhile, engaged with Tolan on the scientific front, exchanging ideas about technologies that ranged from terraforming to quantum computing. The Zalari had developed methods of space travel that bent space-time in ways that Jonah had only theorized about. "Your understanding of quantum entanglement could revolutionize how we think about connectivity across vast distances," Jonah said, his mind alight with possibilities. As the archive grew, so did its purpose. It was no longer just a repository of knowledge, but a living, breathing cultural exchange that bridged 3 distinct civilizations. They decided to rename it the Intergalactic Cultural Repository, reflecting its new role as a center for learning and connection for any spacefaring civilization that might discover it in the future. The physical layout of the repository was also redesigned. Together with the Zalari, Lria and Jonah expanded the infrastructure, creating spaces that could host delegations from other planets. They integrated Zalari environmental technology, which allowed the facility to mimic the atmospheric conditions of different worlds, making it a comfortable meeting place for diverse species. As the repository took on its new form, the initial apprehensions Lria had felt about welcoming strangers into their once secluded refuge subsided, replaced by a profound sense of accomplishment and anticipation. "We are crafting a new chapter in the history of the galaxy," she mused one evening, as she and Jonah watched a simulated sunset designed by Mira, replicating the breathtaking vistas of a Zalari world. Jonah nodded, his eyes reflecting the myriad colors of the fading light. "And to think this all began with a simple desire to preserve what we feared was lost. Now we're part of something that transcends any one civilization." The sense of community and shared purpose was palpable as more signals began to reach the repository. News of this cultural beacon spread, and messages from other distant worlds started to arrive. Each new connection was a thread added to the rich tapestry they were weaving together. One morning, as Lria checked the communication console, she found a new transmission from a species calling themselves the Itheri. They had caught wind of the repository and were eager to contribute and learn from what had been gathered. "It seems we have new guests to prepare for," she said to Jonah with a smile. Jonah looked up from his work, a gleam of excitement in his eyes. "The more the merrier," he chuckled. "Each new visitor brings a piece of the universe to our doorstep." As the repository prepared to welcome the Itheri, Lria and Jonah realized that their roles had evolved significantly. They were no longer merely survivors or archivists, but diplomats and hosts in a continually expanding interstellar dialogue. The archive, with its ever-growing collection of knowledge and cultural artifacts, was becoming a cornerstone of intergalactic unity and understanding, a place where different worlds met not just to share their pasts, but to forge a common future. The intergalactic cultural repository had become a symbol of unity and a beacon of knowledge, drawing beings from across the stars to the once lonely moon. As Lria and Jonah prepared to welcome the Itheri, the excitement was palpable. The repository had not only preserved their pasts, but was now shaping the future of interstellar relations. The Itheri delegation arrived in a vessel that shimmered with an opalescent sheen, reflecting the myriad colors of the cosmos. Their appearance was marked by elegance and fluidity, with forms that shifted subtly, reflecting their moods and thoughts. Lria greeted them at the airlock, her words of welcome rehearsed yet heartfelt. "We are honored to host you," she said, extending a hand in friendship. The Itheri, communicating through a form of empathic projection, conveyed their gratitude and eagerness to explore the repository. Their leader, a being named Corin, emanated a gentle warmth that filled the room. "We bring with us the stories of Itheri, eager to weave them into the fabric of this grand tapestry." The integration of Itheri culture into the repository was a delicate process, involving the translation of abstract concepts and the adaptation of Itheri art forms into formats accessible to other species. The Itheri brought with them a form of visual storytelling that was both narrative and interactive, allowing viewers to experience stories in a multidimensional space. Jonah worked closely with Corin to set up the Itheri exhibits. "Your visual stories are fascinating," he remarked during one of their sessions. "They're like living dreams that everyone can step into." Corin responded with a ripple of colors along their form, a sign of pleasure. "We hope that by sharing them, we can offer a glimpse into our consciousness and foster a deeper understanding among all who visit here." As the repository's fame grew, it attracted scholars, diplomats, and explorers. Debates and discussions held within its walls were broadcast throughout the galaxy, offering insights and fostering a spirit of collaboration and peace among disparate civilizations. One day, as the repository buzzed with activity, Lria took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought her to this point. She stood by the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. Beside her, Jonah joined in contemplation. "We've created something extraordinary, haven't we?" she mused. Jonah nodded, his eyes alight with reflective pride. "Yes, we've built a nexus, not just for cultures to meet, but for new beginnings to take root. Who would have thought that your arrival would lead to this?" Lria smiled, her thoughts turning to her homeworld. "I often think about Esethera, how they view emotions as unnecessary. Here, though, in the diversity of these exchanges, emotions are not just necessary, they are essential. It's the heartbeat of the universe, Jonah agreed. Every culture brings a unique rhythm, and here, they synchronize to create something beautiful. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the communication console. Another signal had been detected, this time from a previously unknown quadrant of the galaxy. Excitement buzzed through Lria as she considered the possibilities. "Looks like we have more guests on the horizon," Jonah said, grinning. Lyria's response was thoughtful, her eyes fixed on the stars. Each new connection expands our understanding. We're not just preserving cultures, we're creating a new vision for the galaxy. The repository, once a silent archive on a desolate moon, had transformed into a living, thriving community. It stood as a testament to the power of curiosity and the unyielding spirit of cooperation. As Lria and Jonah returned to their duties, greeting new visitors and planning for future expansions, they knew that their mission was far from over. The repository would continue to grow, as would their understanding of the vast, intricate tapestry of the universe. In this nexus of new beginnings, every day was a chance to learn, to share, and to hope for a brighter, more connected future.